What we do here is go back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hunt Fish Drive. Today we're going to go through and talk a little bit about my Duramax, and I'm going to go through the 5 dislikes that I have with it. Let me preface this by saying, though, it's difficult for me to come up with 5 dislikes. For one, I really do like this vehicle, but I was able to come up with 5 things that I don't like about it. So here we go. Let's jump right into it. Before I get started, just want to give a little bit of a background on this truck. This is a 2005 Chevy 2500 HD with the Duramax diesel and Allison transmission. I bought it used. It does have quite a few miles right now. It's got about 300,000 on it, but it's in relatively good shape, and I've tried to maintain it quite well for its age. The first thing I want to talk about is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. And to be honest, it doesn't bother me on a day-to-day basis, but it is something I know about, and therefore occasionally I'll think about it. But it's the offset steering wheel. A lot of you are probably familiar with the Chevy and GM vehicles from this era. This is a 2005, but a lot of you are aware that they had an offset steering wheel in them. So what I mean by that is the steering wheel, as you're sitting inside, is not square with where you're sitting. It tilts a little bit to the left. I'm not sure if I can really show this from top-down view, but it's just something that it doesn't bother me day to day, but I know it's there, and I'm not sure why they did it. If you guys know why they did this, comment below, because I would sure like to know. Number 4 on my list I'd like to talk about is cab corner rust. As you can see, this thing is getting some cab corner rust. I have attempted to patch it up a little bit in the past, but I think part of it is a design issue. The other part is I live in Wisconsin, and we salt the roads here, so it's inevitable that things are going to rust. We try to take care of them as good as we can, but it's going to happen. But I think part of the problem here is a design issue with these cab corners. From what I've read and what I've seen, it looks like they were designed to trap moisture in there, and basically all that does then is moisture sits in the metal and rusts them out. It may not be a real big issue down south where it's warm and there's no rust, but up here it just seems like they rust out quite easily. So at some point these will be replaced on mine. I'm just trying to piece it together for as long as I can. But it is an issue. You can also see the rocker panels too are starting to get bad, and I think that's part of the same issue. It's just a lot of salt here, and the cab corners and rocker panels trap moisture, so they just rust out. So the number 3 dislike that I have with this vehicle, we have to go under the hood to look at. But basically it's the turbo mouthpiece. In 2004 and a half and 2005 on these LLY Duramaxes, they had a super restrictive turbo mouthpiece. And I actually have the stock piece right here, but as you can see, the air comes in from the left side here, and it has to take a 90-degree bend before going into the turbo. Also, inside of here, I know it's kind of difficult to see, but there's a real sharp edge, and it restricts down a lot. What that does is kind of keep cool air from getting into the engine, and also keeps it from spooling up the turbo as well as it should. So one of the first modifications I did was to swap this out with a much larger piece, as you can see right here, from a 2007 LBZ Duramax. It does not have those restrictions, and it just flows a lot more air. I noticed right away as soon as I put it on, the turbo seemed to spool up a lot quicker. And it's just, I don't know if there's much horsepower or torque gain from it, but it's just something I'd recommend as a number 1 modification for those of you that have a 04.5 and 05 Duramax. The number 2 thing that I dislike about the vehicle, and it's another one that's under the hood, but I can't really show you, or not, at least not very well, but it's the head gasket design on these trucks. So in 2004.5 and 2005, they had a design issue, I believe it was, with the head gaskets. So what would happen is eventually maybe 100,000 miles, 200. I know this one's got 300 and I don't know the complete history, but at some point it's almost inevitable that the head gaskets are going to fail on these LLY Duramaxes. These were replaced. Basically, it's just an issue, I believe, with the way the gasket's designed. So the newer ones are updated. The newer gaskets, the replacements are updated so they don't have those issues. But some of the symptoms I can kind of talk about in how to diagnose it are, well, there's one major way to diagnose. But some of the things that pop up are, you'll notice the coolant tank here. If you take the cap off when it's cold, it'll still hold pressure. You might get some coolant bubbling out, you know, a bunch of air rushing out of there. But the only real good way to tell for sure that it's head gaskets is park the truck at night, just leave it sit. The next morning when it's the engine's cold, come out and grab the upper radiator hose. You should be able to squish it pretty much flat real easily. If you grab onto it and it's the consistency of a tennis ball, it's hard to squish, it's got pressure in it, most likely it's going to be a head gasket issue. So I know it took me quite a while to diagnose mine. I just, partially because I think I was in denial. It was right when I bought the truck. So I didn't really want to spend more money replacing them, but eventually, you know, through reading in the forums and talking to mechanics, I was able to determine that yes, it was a head gasket and had those replaced right away. But it is not a huge issue. I'm assuming, you know, there are quite a few number of trucks that never had this issue, but it seems like a big percentage of the LLY Duramaxes will have head gasket issues. So that brings us to the last and number one issue that I have with this truck. And I think it's an issue that a lot of people seem to share, but it's the independent front suspension. You know, I think pretty much everybody's aware, but Chevy, GM, I guess, has decided to keep independent front suspension in all of their heavy-duty vehicles. In my opinion, it seems like it doesn't belong in a heavy-duty pickup. They're the only ones that keep it around. It just seems like a weak point in the design. Otherwise, this truck seems quite robust, but it just seems like kind of a weak point to me. You can go online and you'll see tons and tons of videos of bent tie rods. Anytime they're in four-wheel drive, if you're pulling something heavy and get good traction, it'll bend the tie rods. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's, you know, things aren't super beefy under here for a heavy-duty pickup. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but you can see the tie rod's quite small. That seems to be a super weak point. It does have some advantages, which I'll talk about in another video, but for me, it's just kind of a little bit of a drawback. Someday I wouldn't mind doing a solid axle swap. That would be way in the future, and you know, I'd probably be lifting and doing a bunch of things at the same time, so just not in the cards at this moment. That pretty much finishes up the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed this look at my dislikes with this vehicle, and I hope you realize that I don't dislike this vehicle in total, otherwise I wouldn't have it. I really do like it. It was difficult for me to kind of come up with some things that I really didn't like about it. But stay tuned. My next video, I will have the 5 things that I do like about this, which is much easier for me to come up with that list. I hope you guys are having a great day. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Also, comment below if you know why the steering wheel is crooked. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe for a lot more content. Thanks and have a great day.